I'm pleased to share with you this recording of the pilot session that we had for Communicate to Connect on Saturday, December 9th, 2023. And thank you for those who joined us. This is a great way to review some of the key points. And for those that weren't able to join us, here you can enjoy some of the highlights, take notes, but we really encourage you to be included in the next session. Now, just a note, in the perfect world, we would have had a slightly different presentation. What happened was right before our workshop was beginning, we had some technical difficulties, and Coach Gordan's computer was not working, and he wasn't able to get connected in his studio. So we made do, and I shared from our office here the slideshow, and we made it work. So I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. We're here for you. We would love your feedback because that's what we're doing. This pilot session was to just give a little hint of what we can put together for you in the new year. We work with individuals, groups, organizations, and it's all, pretty much customized to serve you. So please connect with us. Don't hesitate. Don't overthink, let's just talk, and we can really put something together that's awesome. Just to give a quick intro for your co-hosts here, Coach Gordan MacFarland and the Goes. Coach Gordan is a high-performance mindset coach. He works with a lot of leaders, athletic teams, entrepreneurs. He is a coach for coaches, and his specialty includes preparing people for mental toughness, influential communication, and emotional intelligence. As for us, the Goes, we coach business owners, entrepreneurs. We work with individuals, groups, organizations, and we love working and building community. And we also recognize that begins with personal growth to professional growth. So we're here to serve you today. Enjoy this pilot session. We need your feedback so that we can know, how to design and customize programs for 2024. So thank you for joining us.
Understand the basic needs of individuals. You can speak to those needs, and when their needs are being met, their performance and productivity goes up. And so that's been the greatest insight for me, is when I work with my athletes, when I work with leaders and organizations, if you create the climate and establish the right environment, people respond. And that's the tooling that we give people to help them to understand how to effectively do that. We're not just throwing mud against the wall and hoping something sticks. It's actually a legitimized program that's been actually proven through sports, education, church, all the different milieus. We've been able to use it successfully. So it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yes. So, and so the title of this is Communicating to Connect, because a lot of times we may be communicating, talking, whatever, but are we really connecting with the people that we're talking with? And our question is, are you connecting with your children? How do you feel? Are you connecting with your family members? Are you connecting with team members, church family? A lot of times, we go to church and then we leave, and then it's like, what? But clients, how to connect better with them, because that's where it's going to make the difference. Whether someone's going to resonate with you or not is how well you are connecting with them. And so that's our specialty as well. Some of the questions as far as pertaining to parenting themselves, let's say, is your quiet teen shy or just not choosing to participate? Do you have someone that you would consider as a troublemaker, but maybe that they're just feeling misunderstood or frustrated. And we often hear with parents that have older kids, they're going, well, our teen, was such a sweet child. What happened? And so that's another mystery that, we're going to be tapping into. Other questions that parents may have, is this just a phase? And is there hope for a better future? And what do we do? A lot of them are just wondering what to do. But I like to take this moment also for us to stop and for you to write in the chat and type in what your pain points are, what kind of comes to your mind, whether it's what you're dealing directly with your child right now, or you're with other parents that are expressing this concern. Please add it into the chat and we'll address that. This helps us because we want to meet the needs of the parents. We don't want to just, we've got lots of information, but we want to make it so that it's actually helping you and helping others.
Part of the biggest challenge is for when you communicate to connect is that, like you mentioned earlier, Sandy, is that are you speaking the language? Are you meeting the specific needs of individuals? Do you understand what their specific needs are? Each personality has a basic need in order for them to perform at a high level, at the highest possible level in their personality. So if you understand the basic needs of the D personality under the DISC model, you understand the basic needs of the D, the I, the S, and the C personality, that opens a whole gateway of opportunities for you to connect and communicate effectively with them. And when people feel good about who they are, that the needs are being met that they have, they perform better. Doesn't that make sense? Let's ask each of you. If you feel good about who you are, doesn't everything you do become better? That's really the essence of what we're talking about. So we as leaders, communicators, parents, educators, coaches, leadership anywhere, has to really take an extra step to understand who they're dealing with, what's their personality, what's their behavior and attitude, what are they like, who are they? Yes, they have a skill set, but who are they as people? With my athletic teams that I work with, we look at their skill as an athlete, but we look at their character as a person. How can we reach the person? Because if you can reach the person, help them to feel good about who they are, everything they do from a performance perspective is better.
Introduction to personalities. And again, this is the Communicate to Connect session. All right.
So that's the idea. People improve how they communicate through personality discovery. So the training objectives are threefold. Building self-awareness so that you understand who you are, what you do, how you do it, why, your basic needs. When you know who you are, you're comfortable with who you are, then you can start to reach out to other people, knowing the people around you. So that's the second step of our awareness program, is to help you understand the people around you. What are their needs? How to engage them, how to motivate them, how to inspire them. And if you're in an organization, the third step would be to basically understand how to build organizations, teams, understanding who needs maybe a little more encouragement, who needs a little more motivation and inspiration, or who needs a kick in the butt. Like different people need different things to motivate them. Some people are okay with a bit of a kick in the butt. Other people, you need to motivate them, inspire them, encourage them, and support them. So the objective of our training sessions are to really help you understand your self-awareness, knowing the people around you, and then how to transfer that to build organizations that you're with. And so we talk about just understanding people around us. You can't build anything without knowing people. We don't get a lot of time being trained about how to treat people. Most of the organizations that I end up working with have never really gotten any intrapersonal relationship training. How do we connect with people who are a little more difficult to understand? We were at a store earlier today, and the gentleman that was serving us wasn't very big on smiling. He was very, very information-based. But I could tell he was a very analytical, very probably laid-back individual, but he wasn't very friendly. And so it was very difficult to engage him. And so it's interesting when you know personalities, you have to change your demeanor, have to change your approach so you can understand how to connect with better. Remember, how to connect with people better. Remember that we're in the people business, all of us. Everything we do, we say, some of us say, well, I'm in education, I teach people. Well, they focus more on the education than they do on connecting with the people. And in sales, the same thing. I'm selling things. Well, you're really selling to people. So you have to understand how to bridge that gap between understanding people and selling your product. And it's the same with parenting. You have to know your kids. A lot of times when we started, Sandy and I, when we started working together with Dr. Rome, we began to find out things about our kids that we thought we knew, but we didn't really know. And even our kids said, well, you don't really know me. And they were actually right. We were going by what we understood them not meet. We had an expectation of them and they weren't meeting our expectations. So we didn't really understand them from their perspective. When we understood their personalities, we could now begin to reach them on a better level. And there was a greater level of understanding. So a lot of this, again, when we do the training, we have to understand that we've been trying to figure out people for a long time. Human behavior goes back 2,400 years to Hippocrates, and he started to recognize there were differences in behaviors. Later, there were guys like William Marsden in the 1940s and 50s where they did testing, but he actually did his model in 1926 and 1928 at Harvard University. He wrote a book called what's it called? I forget the name of it. It's coming up here. Here we go. The Emotions of Normal People. So that was his book, and that was the thesis on DISC, the model of DISC, D-I-S-C, the model of human behavior. He's also an inventor. He created the lie detector, the polygraph. And so later on, through the couple of years, he created the first DISC assessment. And this was a 24-question assessment that you could participate in to find out, hey, what is my personality? What is my predominant trait? What are my secondary traits? And what do I kind of lack a little bit of understanding in terms of what my personality is? We have all four of the traits in us, some to a greater, some to a lesser degree. So the words we use are really more objective and descriptive rather than subjective and judgmental. We don't want to put people into a box. We don't want to pigeonhole them and tell them, oh, this is who you are. Well, yes, this is who you are, but the greater thing is understanding what you can be with the personality you have. So we try to be very objective, very descriptive, and it's a wellness program. We're not trying to tell people what they're not good at. We're trying to say, hey, we're going to celebrate you in your personality so you understand who you can be based on how you were wired, how you were with the personality you were actually born with in your DNA. That's what people don't necessarily always understand, is that your personality is DNA based. And that people will ask me all the time, they'll say, well, how come people's personalities change? Well, it's not really their personality that changes. What you're seeing in them is attitude and behavior. That's character based. Character is what changed based on people's behavior towards them. And so that's all part of nurture. So this is a question we get asked here all the time, is what's the difference between personality and character? Personality is who you are. Character is what you do with who you are, right? And character is based on how you were raised. Your parents, your grandparents, your teachers, your coaches, your peers, everybody that you run into, the behaviors that you like, you acquire for yourself and you apply. The behaviors you don't like, you kind of push aside. If you're raised in a very negative environment, you tend to grow up more negative. If you're raised in a very positive, upbeat environment, you tend to grow up more positive. So it really has a lot to do with the nurturing and the behavior that you were around when you were growing up. And that really dictates a lot of how you become in your environment and your behavior when people see you. You want to add anything to this at all, Sandy?
All these participants here, I know that are in leadership positions and want to see more individuals take on leadership positions and step up and be more engaging and productive. And that is very challenging. But the greater, I think, individuals have self-confidence and recognize their personal strengths, they're going to be able to step out, and they're going to see that they have natural gifts that only they can give in the way that they deliver it. And
Yep.
So that's our goal. One of our goals for these communication to connect is to equip leaders to be more effective, equip parents to be more effective.
Model to do that. And so if there's a desire to increase your effectiveness in connections, then there is an actual model that we can follow to help do that. You know, my wife and I, we've worked in seminars many, many years, and we help coaches and parents and educators to reach their students, their kids, anybody that they're working with, and coaches reaching athletes. What better way to do that is if you want them to get them to play better, you have to be able to communicate to them in effective ways. So like I said, I've been a leadership coach for over 30 years, started leading, Sandy and I, my wife and I, we've done leadership conferences all over North America and even over in England and off the continent. So the parallels are the same. They're all the same. It's the same principle. Sorry, not so much parallels, but the principles are the same. No matter where you go, whether it's England or whether it's California, whether it's Ottawa, Canada, doesn't matter. The principles remain the same if you want to have high performance and make good connections with people. But it's then to find the base of an enjoyable training program that people will actually get some really good information that they can actually that they can refer back to.
Yes, exactly. And that's a good key, because we're going to be sharing information. The principles are there, but we can customize workshops that will be appealing to your group. We can make it fun. We can, add props in it. There's a lot of things that we can do. So this is just,
I noticed in the chat too, Sandy, that they were saying, like, my wife and I, we've got 4 children. They're all in their 3 of them in their 30s and one is 27. So we've been through the teen years, and we've got grandkids that are now in their teens as well. So we got a 14-year-old and we got a 12-year-old. We got kids that are coming into their teens. So we understand all of that pretty well. The model of human behavior that we teach, there's a whole teaching session that Dr. Rome does on teens and helping you to connect with teenagers and how to address them and and here's another subject matter: millennials, the Z generation, X generation. How do you connect to those? So again, human behavior is just one dynamic. The other is working with youngsters and working with teens and working with adults. It's a different dynamic for all of them, but the same baseline principle. Behavior itself, or personality itself, doesn't change. What changes is character, attitude, and behavior. So you have to understand, what is the attitude and behavior? Where's it coming from? And that's why we end up getting character. Character is derived from the attitude and behavior. Does that make sense? So once we have the dynamic of understanding how they got there, we can address the issues of how to get out of it and how to fly. The purpose of the pilot here is really just to give you some basic understanding of how the training is going to go forward. And then we offer basically 2-3 hours. There's actually way more than that. There's probably about 12 to 15 hours of training on this particular subject matter, but we don't want to keep people too long. We want to give them a good base in the full program called Communicate to Connect. It's really giving you the specifics on what to say, how to say it, and when to, the how, the what, the how, the why. That's really the key, is the what, the how, and the why. Because the kids don't come with instruction manuals, right?
Really?
Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, wouldn't that be great if they came with an instruction manual? Well, this is kind of like our experience. We've been married almost 40 years, and we've got 4 grown adult children with grandkids through them. So we've run the gauntlet, and we're on the other side, and we're beginning to see how effective that is. So as we start to go through the program, you'll begin to see, well, there's a high measure of effectiveness with this information, and it's really a fun thing to do. It's a very engaging and fun thing to do as well. Each participant in the training is going to go through a 24-question assessment. It's a performance mindset assessment, character assessment. Fairly simple process, takes about 15-20 minutes to do, and everybody at one time has done one of these: Enneagrams, Myers-Briggs, DISC. We use the DISC model because we find it's really easy to understand, and it's also easy to remember. Memory recall is probably one of the biggest factors in understanding personality. If you take these assessments and you don't remember what they are and how to apply them, they're not of much value. So we want to be able to help you understand them through a very easy and simplistic, very comprehensive formula. So that's why we chose the DISC model. We feel it's very, very easy to understand and easy to remember. So you're going to get a 6-page profile in the training. It's going to give you your basic and your environmental behavior, and you're going to be able to understand who you are, what you do, how you do it, why, from your perspective, from your personality. And then once we have that, we're going to explain a little bit. The next page, I think, just explains what the graphs are. We'll get into a little bit more on that when we get into the actual training. So the 2 graphs of like tell you the story. We're going to get into some real good details on that in the training. Next page, Sandy. Just go to the next one. Yeah, follow through there. There you go. So we're going to give you this worksheet. Now, again, is this the worksheet that you sent them for the training today?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're going to go through this one just to give you the basic dynamics of DISC, and Sandy will be able to walk you through each of the letters D, I, S, and C, and then I'll chime in. I'll let you take lead on this and see how you do here, Sandy.
Okay.
So go to the next page. go to the next page here. Let's see what's next. Okay, so giving you a better picture is that everybody has particular behaviors. They have different unique, you can tell by body language, facial expression, who people are. But what we need is another tool. The personality character insights give you this tool. It tells you who is who's outgoing, who's reserved. D's and I's are outgoing, C's and S's are reserved, right? So now you know the dynamic of this. C's and S's are reserved, D's and I's are outgoing. So what's their priority? We call this, where do they find their need? Go ahead. So the priority is for the I's and the S's, people. They like to be around people. They like to understand people. They like to make friends. They like to be in relationships. The D's and the C's, they are task oriented. Oops. Right? They're task oriented. They like to get things done. They like to process things. So that's okay. Don't worry about it. So right now we're going to put it all together to give you the dynamic of who everybody is. D, I, S, and C, because we all have all four traits in our personality, some to a greater, some to a lesser degree. So the key word, letter, and symbol and color are the way we identify them, and that's how we help people remember who they are. So you have your letters, D, I, S, and C. You have the color, green, red, blue, and yellow. And then you also have the symbol, the exclamation point, the star, the plus, minus, and the question mark. And so now you have a keyword as well to go with each of them. So what we're going to show you here is 4 different individual words that are going to give you a baseline so that you can have a better chance at memory recall. All right, you want to take over here, Sandy? Go ahead.
Okay, so the D's are direct. They have the exclamation point. They're emphatic. Their color is green because they like to go. They tend to be very fast-paced. They tend to be impatient. So the I's are influencers. They are represented with a star. They like attention, and the color is red because they like to go. They're very active. They're interactive and very relationship-oriented. The S's are supportive. The sign is plus and minus because they like to balance things out. They don't like to cause friction. They don't like confrontation. And the color is blue because that tends to match with anything. They're stable. They're very easy to have in the group. The C's are cautious.
They're cautious. They're very careful.
They have a question mark. They ask a lot of questions. They usually want all the answers before they make a decision. The color is yellow. So we take note to remember no one is purely one type. We tend to either have 1 or 2 dominant personality types, but we are a combination of all of them, the DISCs.
Right.
What does each person... Oh, go ahead.
So yeah, just to go back on that piece, so when you look at the dynamic of each of the 4 personalities together, we have all of those 4, even though you may be prominent. Like for me, I'm a DI. Gino is a DI. Sandy, you're, I think, an SIC or SC, right?
Yeah, I do both. Yes, SC.
Yeah, ISS. Yeah. So it's cool how you begin to realize that sometimes opposites attract. You know, like you'll often find DI personalities that have married an SC or an SI because there's an attraction there. There's kind of a neat magnetic attraction in relationships. So, and it comes down to what we're going to talk about here is what does each personality want? So each personality has a different desire. They also have basic needs, but they also have different wants. So there's, like I said, we could spend probably 15, 20 days training you on the different dynamics of personalities and how to make connections. But this is the foundational starting point. I want to give you a good understanding of how we get started here. So each one of these 4 profiles, each one of these personalities has a specific want. How do they go about doing things? When a D personality is driving forward, like Sandy said, they're drivers. They're driving forward. It's because they want to get results. That's their main objective. Their main objective is to drive to get results. The I's are completely different. Even though they're outgoing, they're not about getting results. They're about recognition and connection with people. They want people to recognize them. Hey, there's my friend Sandy, right? They're waving. Let's get together with Sandy so we can have a good time. They want to enjoy themselves, right? D's just want to get the job done. They're not so big on social events. They just want to get things done. The S's, again, they're people oriented, but they're reserved. They're more reserved. So they're really into family and relationships and just being around people and just feeling good about their connections with others, right? That's what they're very easygoing. They're a lot more laid back. They're not as outgoing as our D&I friends, right? They just let's just stay home and just kick it back and just have a nice time. The C's, who are also reserved, they're about corrective action, right? They're about getting things done the right way. They want to make sure that things are done in such a way that we don't have to do it twice. They want to make sure that it's done right. If it's done right, then it's done well. If you don't have the right plan, if you don't have steps, if you don't have a menu, if you don't have the ingredients correct, then you're not going to get the good results. So what this gives you now is a recognition of how people, what makes people tick. Why do they do the things they do? It's because D's want to get results. S's or C's want to ask a lot of questions. Why? Because they love getting things done the right way. So they'll ask a lot of questions. And for a D who wants to get things done, that kind of gets a little annoying, right? So they get annoyed. Why are you asking so many questions? Well, it's what they want. They want to get things done right. They ask questions to get things right. So this is where you get a little bit of friction, because if you look at what people want and say an I is working with a D, they want to be recognized, but D's just want to get things done. So, well, if there's time to be recognized, there's time to have fun. But I just want to get things done. So you can see where there's going to be a little bit of friction in those connections based on people want. So that's a good starting point where you can say, okay, D's, I's, S's, and C's, they're all different. They're similar, but they're not the same. I's and D's are outgoing. S's and C's are reserved, right? But they're not the same. I's and S's are people-oriented, but they're not the same in a relationship. D's and C's are task-oriented, but they go about doing things a different way, right? C's are very detailed. D's are not. D's are just let's get it done. Don't worry about the details. We'll figure out the details later. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah. In relationship to children or the teaching students or in the teams, can you kind of give examples for each of those? Like, for example, the D's for the kids are probably the real active ones that considered maybe, cause more trouble is because they are faster paced and they want results and they want it now and they don't want to wait for instruction. For kids that are high I's, they're more interactive. They love relationships. They'll be the more talkative ones that would be in class that need to be reminded to be quiet and wait to take their eye strengths out in the playground. The S's are the ones that are very easygoing, but they actually can also be very influenced. So in kindness, they don't want to cause friction. They don't like confrontation. So the children that have IS, I would just, say that they need to be encouraged that it's okay to say no. And then for an example for the C's, they like to be very careful. They like to make sure everything is right. They don't like making mistakes. They don't like to be wrong. And so it might take them a little longer to make decisions. And if something is not followed correctly, what they consider correctly, it can cause friction in that way, because that is really hard for them to accept. So anyway, that's just a little example of application of understanding what their dominant personality type is and how the approach might be different when you're working with them for teaching or for activities. So if you have your worksheet, we have the D's. You can jot down these descriptors. For D's, they're drivers. They tend to be demanding. They're very decisive. They can make, if you ask them a question, they usually have the answer right away. They are determined. They tend to be leaders because they do know what they want, and they are very good at following through until they get that result. They are doers, and all of them, each of these personality strengths also have a blind spot.
Yeah, sorry, Sandy, I lost audio or video here. I was able to get back in. I only got like one bar on the where I was. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So yeah,
We're on the eyes now.
okay, the D personality. As you'll notice, as Sandy's going through each of these, you'll notice that the words we use are a wellness application. We don't spend a whole lot of time on negative, although there are certainly negative aspects of each personality and character. But we want to point out the high points of what people bring to we call it value proposition. The value proposition of each individual, what they bring in their character, is that they're determined, decisive doers, right? They're decisive in their decision making. If you want to get something done, you give it to a D. And I did hear your question, is that, Ds tend to be leaders. I could, for whatever reason, I wasn't connecting on that. You didn't hear me. So the I's are typically people that want to have fun. They want to be around people all the time. And that could be an issue if you want to get work done, right? If someone always wants to have fun, right? And you're trying to get a job done, and they're horsing around in the corner. My wife has a difficult time with those kids in school sometimes, is that they're very difficult to get settled down in the classroom. But you have to understand that they have a short attention span. We call it, a lot of I's have ADD and ADHD. A lot of D's have ADD. They want to get things done, and they're very impatient typically. So they like to move fast, right? But they're typically leaders. They like to be out in front. They like to be someone that's in charge of things. And you'll see that when we look at the basic needs. The S's, yeah, they're the wallflowers. They're the kind of people that just want to kind of be in the mix. They want to just kind of be with everybody and kind of go along with everybody and kind of, make sure that everybody's having a good time and everybody's relaxed and okay, that nobody's under pressure, nobody's under stress. And they have a very hard time to see, you'll see this later, they have a difficult time with confrontation. They don't like to confront people. They're like, because they're nice. They're just typically very, very nice people. The C's, they're typically very highly organized, right? They're usually very good students. They love to do their homework. Everything is usually compartmentalized. They have sticky notes on everything. They have everything in files and folders. In fact, I even say that C-type personalities have file folders in their head, right? They actually have everything compartmentalized in their head. And some of you on the call today may have that same thing in your mind. You have everything organized the way you want it to go. And when it doesn't happen, it kind of messes you up, So if you think about, things, people in your life that have had that kind of an attitude, well, they were probably C's. Many teachers have a C or an S primary personality. That's typically what draws them to that vocation. So the I's, here's some great words. Let's go with the I's. Yep. The influencer.
Influencer.
You want to take that?
Sure. So we're continuing on their worksheets. The I's are impulsive, impressionable, interactive, impressive, and involved.
And again, all very positive things, very positive, right? We want to talk about the good things of their value proposition of what they bring to the table. So when you're looking at people that you want to be part of an organization, is this the kind of person that you need? Well, if that's the person you need, that's the one you want to look for. Someone who has that impressionable, interactive, impressive kind of presentation, right?
Right. They're for businesses, they're very good for marketing, for customer service, sales. They like that interaction. Yep. And they love recognition. So they're motivated with rewards.
The blind spot is something that, again, when you're driving in your car and you don't check your blind spot, you can get into a fender bender. It's the same thing for personalities. Okay. If you don't check your character and you don't know who you're dealing with, if I'm a D and I'm dealing with an I who's just being impulsive and trying to have fun, but if I'm very curt with them and I'm very short with them, I could hurt their feelings, right? And because sometimes they just do things that are illogical. And that's the blind spot for an I, is that they do things that are illogical and they don't make sense to other people, but make perfect sense to them, right? And so you ask them, well, why did you do that? They go, I don't know why I did that, right? And so, well, it didn't make sense to me and it doesn't make sense to you, so it doesn't make sense why you would even do it. So the fun thing about this personality is, for me anyway, is that Three of our four daughters are high I's, and my wife is a D and I'm a D. So we've had a lot of experience with this personality. And so we know they are kind of impulsive, and they are kind of spontaneous. And so they kind of do things just off the cuff. And so you have to kind of be ready for that. They're not doing it to you, they're doing it for themselves. So sometimes we get a little annoyed with them. And that's where we say it's a blind spot for them. They don't realize that they're doing it. And so they sometimes get into what we call personality fender benders. But we can all get into those fender benders if we're not careful.
Exactly. Okay, are we ready for the next? We have the S's. The S's are stable. They're steady. They tend to be described as sweet and nice.
We say sweet for the ladies, nice for the guys.
That's right.
I don't usually call guys sweet. Right? I don't go to my friends or my hockey players that, hey, you're a sweet player. No, I don't say that to them. It doesn't. I say they're nice.
Yeah. And status quo, again, they don't like to make any riffs or anything. They
like things to say, like they like the status quo thing. They don't like things to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. They're comfortable with being comfortable.
Absolutely.
And their blind spot is they can't say no. And just like I mentioned before, that's kind of a danger spot for influenced kids.
Yeah, and they have a tendency to take on more than they can really handle, because they don't like to say no to people. They don't want people to not like them, so they say yes, but they find themselves in a bit of a pickle because they've taken on more than they can actually accomplish. So it's really difficult for them to say no in a lot of situations. And you may know someone like that. It may be you, right? Mm-hmm. You may take on that extra thing that you probably shouldn't have done, and it puts a lot of pressure on you, and it creates a lot of anxiety.
Right. I'd like to make another point. If your child is an S, for high S's, they might not be as expressive. And so whether or not they feel comfortable doing something or agree, or if it's something that they really don't value or like, they might not express that. So sometimes,
exactly.
So take note of that, because those are the ones that are quiet, sweet children, and then when they go into the teen years and take on that transformation or transition to adulthood is where you might be a little bit surprised, because what you thought was okay with them is not.
Yeah, and they sometimes have a tendency to be taken advantage of because they don't say no, right? They just go along with things, and people have a tendency to take advantage of them a little too much, more than they should.
Mm-hmm. Okay, going on to the C's. The C's are cautious, they're conscientious, competent, concise, contemplative, and careful. They like to have all the facts. They're very, what do you call it? Intellectual. They.
Yeah. And you'll notice that in each of the words, like we give D words for the D, I words for the I, S words for the S, and C words for the C. Why is that? It's because we want you to have a good memory recall. We want you to have those extra inputs onto who are these people, and it allows you to remember them better when we give you all these little tricks to remember who people are. C personalities, we've given you 5 or 6 C words to remember them by. But again, the blind spot, remember, you got to be careful. You got to watch out. There's those people blinds, fender benders that you could get into, because C's ask a lot of questions, and sometimes they don't answer a lot of questions, so they come across as cold. They're very business-like. They don't mean to be. Just that when you're very serious about your life and very serious about the things you do, and you're very task-oriented, sometimes it doesn't look like you're having any fun, right? And that reflects on your face. Remember, I told you facial expressions, the clothes you wear, the way you move, that all tells very telling about your personality and your character, and it shows through your behavior. So you have to kind of be aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it, because it for a C personality, they can come across as cold.
Yeah, and so for children that have a high C, you might have to kind of dig a little deeper into helping them to express themselves, to understand what they're feeling, because their facial expressions may not even show that they even care, but They really do. If you give that,
Yeah, they do have a high care quotient. That's a great point, Sandy. I
Mhm.
find that C's are very caring, but they don't express themselves in that way. They do things because they care, but people don't realize they're doing things because they care. They just think they're just trying to be corrective.
Yes, yeah. And I've actually, talked to some adults that are Cs, and the problem is that they come off as being cold, and so they're not connecting with others as well. So they get isolated, and that brings on a whole different level of things that they're dealing with. And so, it's just part of helping our children and ourselves to learn these what do you call it, skills
Yep.
in better communication and expression, so that we're allowing people to be on the same page as us.
More often than not, yeah, that's the idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we're going on tasks, the outgoing Ds and what they like to do. Before we were looking at, what was it, which one was it, the value?
Yeah, value proposition, part of the value
Uh-huh.
proposition.
Okay.
So what they like, it's a very important thing. When we get with our organizations, we do call a like and dislike process. And it's very good to understand what people like and what they don't like, because now you can create the right climate and establish the right environment for people to produce and perform at the right level, at the highest possible level. So when you know what people like, it's very important. If you know the Ds like these things, then you can sort of set up an environment where these things begin to happen and they get more involved. They actually make more of an investment because they're getting more of the results they like.
Exactly. Okay. So the Ds, they like to win. They like new ideas. They like getting results. They like to move fast, and they like a challenge. So those, as far as for children or teens, these are the leaders. Give them something to lead. I would recommend. They like challenges, if you don't give them something good to get involved in, that's where, maybe they might get involved with other things. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, so the point here is that, it's not to say that the I's, S's, and C's don't like these things, but the D's love these things. They like them way more than the other personalities. And this will draw them to whatever environment allows them to achieve these things, if that makes sense to you. So it's not that the others don't like these things. The D's really like these things. It's much more focused.
Yeah, they're driven by them.
Absolutely.
The outgoing, just to let you know, of the Ds, the percentage of the population that tend to have the dominant D is only 10%, and their basic need is choices, challenge, and control.
I think there's one more. If you click, there's one more there.
And
There
to
you
be
go.
in charge.
So there's usually 4 for each one. The basic need is really, I would say 80% of understanding the premise of human behavior is understanding the basic need of each individual personality. So my Dr. Ohm told me in our first training, he didn't tell me, he told the class we were in, there was about 30 of us. He says, if you can memorize these basic needs, your effectiveness with human behavior is going to be amplified 100%. Like you're going to know so much more about how to interact with people when you know these basic needs. Okay, D's, they absolutely need to have choices, something that's going to challenge them, something that they can be in control of, and something they can be in charge of. Mm-hmm. Now you're speaking their language. It's like when you go to France, all right, if you don't speak French, it's going to be hard to maneuver around France. Right? If you go to Spain, you got to learn how to speak Spanish, right? Otherwise, you're not going to get along with them. It's going to be very difficult. This is the language of a D. They need to have choices. They need something to be a challenge. They need to be in control of something. They need to be in charge. That's a basic need. If I call this feeding the beast. If you feed the beast won't eat you. Mm-hmm. That's the premise of this. So when I learned this, Dr. Ohm said, I said to him, so I should probably commit these to memory. He said, that would be a pretty good idea. Because if you can commit them to memory, you're going to have a very, very good handle on human behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the value here, here's, dealing with your children is one thing, and the approach for a D is that you would give your child, some choices, of course, you're in control of those choices, but you're allowing him or her to make a choice so they feel like they're in charge. If you're, running a business, then, you keep that in mind in your approach, especially like for sales. You wouldn't, there's a certain approach that you would have for Ds that would be different than, let's say, an S that would.
Yeah. In the
want-
Communicate to Connect program, we actually teach people, okay, if you're a D, how do you speak to another D? If you're a D, how do you speak to an I? How do you speak to an S? How do you speak to a C? How do you connect with them? So we'll do that for each of the 4 personalities. But we go into a deeper dive into each of the, okay, how do we communicate to connect? How does that work? Right. So this is just the preliminary. This is just the starting point. So you get to understand, okay, there's a baseline. Now we have to take it deeper. We go deeper into the rabbit hole. So here's the thing, just on that note, Sandy, before you head on to the next one, just to give you an example, if you go to a D, right, you say, here's one thing I want to give you a little clue, because I'm a D, my wife's a D. Ds don't like to be told what to do. I'm sure that if you told Gino what to do, Gino doesn't like to be told what to do.
No.
I'm just telling you that right now. Gino likes to make up his own mind. He likes to do what he wants to do in his own time when he wants to do it. Just don't tell Gino what to do, okay? But if you give Gino a task, you say, okay, Gino, I need this done. You can do it this way, or you can do it this way. I don't care which one you choose. Just get it done. See what I mean? So you can send that to Gino. There's point 1 or point 2. You can choose either one. Take point 1, take point 2, go get it done. You decide. You're in charge. See what I mean? Gino's going, great, I'm in charge. I'm going to do number 2. Knock yourself out, Gino. Go crazy. Now he takes full control of that. He's in charge. He's a happy camper. You're happy. He's happy. Happy wife. Happy life.
There you go. And then you're going on to the I's, outgoing people. They like to be liked. They like to express their ideas and feelings. They like to have lots of fun activities, and they like recognition. Yeah, the approaches for I's are much different, and they're fun, and they're really great organizers, and bringing groups together. Gino and I are actually both high I's. Actually, our whole family have high I's, and we love, bringing people together and relationship building. We all have our different, approaches, and that goes along with our other measurements of our personalities. But yeah, overall, the I's like relationships. I's like recognition. So for children, these are the kids that would be motivated by stickers, by some kind of incentives. They love the charts that show their progress. You could put stars on them, and or rewards. That's all very effective for those that have high I's. For the percentage of the population that are high I's are 30%, quite higher than the 10% of the D's. And the basic needs are recognition, having fun, approval, and to be liked. So they are influencers. They really get people excited and get things going, but they also can be influenced. So that's just kind of a checkpoint for parents to, help them to be reassured whether or not they're getting that positive reinforcement from their peers or social, hopefully they're not depending on social media, but that would be something that you should kind of keep an eye on because they love that recognition and that response, and just want to have a checkpoint on that. The S's, we're going to go on to the S's who are more reserved, they're supportive, very people-oriented, and they like to be accepted. They like teamwork and cooperation. They like sticking to what works, and they like harmony, and they like routine. So they're the stable ones. They're the ones that kind of keep the group grounded. They are, as here you see the picture of a nurse, others that, are very supportive positions are included in our teachers. They like cooperation, and they are very cooperative. They love to serve and help others. And again, one of the cautions is that they learn to say their no and to have some limitations in that. One of the things, they like routine, so it might take a little bit more probing to encourage them to try something new. So if you have a shy child, it might just take a little bit more convincing to them that it's worth that feeling of being a little uncomfortable. But once they try out a few things and see the rewards of that, it'll become easier and easier, and they'll build more confidence to try new things. The percentage of the population, our S is 35%. Their basic need is to have security, harmony, to be needed and appreciated. I think everyone likes to be shown appreciation. There's just some of the personalities that need it more. So we're going to go on to the C's. The C's are reserved, they're calculating, very cautious. They like to be right. And it's yellow because, that's like right before the stop and it's not go. You're waiting for them to make a move, but they want to make sure that they've got all the ducks in the row and it is right in every way. They like an established pattern. So they're not as flexible when you're, proposing something new. They like clear instructions. And they like organizing things. So if you have a drawer that needs to be organized or something like that, that might be something that they would enjoy. But the C's tend to be good students. They, as it mentions that they're organized. They, they love to solve problems, and they are results oriented. The percentage of population that are C's is 25%. Their basic need is quality answers, quality information, value, and excellence. So the secret tip for each of these personalities, for D's, they should learn how to follow before they lead. And especially as children, that's something that you as their parent are training them for that. The I's are influencers. The secret tip for them is to learn to focus their energy. They tend to be having the shiny object syndrome. Things are very exciting. They'll get involved in one thing, something else comes that looks really interesting, that distracts them. They'll get off on that. Something else comes back. So it can get pretty crazy with a lot of things going on, and the same things as us adults with high I's. So it's just a matter of learning skills to have more control over that. The S's are supportive. The secret tip is to learn to say no. And that's just, again, building their confidence so that they know it's okay for them to say no. And it doesn't mean that people wouldn't like them or not, but help them to have a higher respect for themselves to be able to know where those boundaries are, where they can say no. The C's, the cautious secret tip is to learn to share how much you care. And again, that's what Coach Gordan and I were mentioning before, as far as being more expressive. So if you have a high C child, maybe you can help them to learn how to express themselves more and teach them how to smile when they're happy. I mean, it seems like this would just happen, but it's not as natural for those that have a high C. And just to let them know that people need to know how much they care.
Just heard my name. Sorry.
Okay. So we have a question here. How do you address a situation where a parent has a teen all of a sudden develop an attitude? Is this something that can be addressed within a personality context, or is it just puberty and hormones?
That's a really good question. That's a bit of a loaded question, so I hope I don't give you less than what you're hoping for here. But here's the thing. There's different types of awareness, right? As a behaviorist, what my wife and I deal with is a lot of situational awareness, emotional awareness. Like there's 5 elements of human behavior. Let me answer it this way. Once you understand the baseline for human behavior, it's really about understanding 5 basic elements. On the people side, now that you know the dynamics of DISC, there's the people side, and then there's the task side, okay? So the task side is really all about getting things done. The people side is about 4 of those elements, 4 of those 5 elements. There's 5 elements to deal with. There's physical, there's emotional, there's relational, there's spiritual, and there's mental, okay? Those are your 5 elements. Let me say them again. Physical, emotional, relational, spiritual, and mental, okay? Now, we're going to separate those into the 2 areas. There's only one element that goes with the task. That's the physical, okay? The 4 other elements lie in the relational side, on the people side. So when you're dealing with emotional, relational, spiritual, and mental, you're talking about people. So there's 4 different elements, or what we call elements or dynamics, in dealing with people. So you have to understand, well, what's the situation? If you understand the situation, is it emotional? Is it relational? Is it spiritual? Is it mental? What is it? What's the source of that challenge? Where could there be a difficulty? Once you know the source, then you can go to that source. And then now you know personality. What's the basic need? Does that make sense? You find out what the situation is, you align the basic need, and then you address it through the basic need and the personality. Yeah, so when you talk about situational awareness, what is that? Is that task or people? Situational awareness, that's task. Mm-hmm. Those are usually pretty easy to define because it's about problem solving, right? So if you have a situation that's causing someone to be upset, you address the issue, right, of what's making them upset in that situation, then you move on, right? Now, if they become emotional about it, you have to understand why they're emotional about it. Mm-hmm. Okay, but you address the situation first. Situational awareness is one dimension. Then you talk about, okay, well, what's the emotional awareness? What am I dealing with? Mm-hmm. Is it a broken heart? Is it fear? Is it what emotion am I dealing with here? Okay. Right? So you have to look at it in those 2 dynamics, either situational awareness and emotional awareness. Okay. Emotional aligns with the people side and situational aligns with the task side.
Okay, I get it.
Then you can align the dynamic of those elements to that, and now you can address it through the basic needs. Mm-hmm. So you kind of what you do is you reverse engineer it. Okay, you know the basic needs of the 4 personalities. Now you have to look at the situation or the emotion, situational awareness, emotional awareness, and you backtrack and they say, okay, well, what personality am I dealing with? If I'm dealing with a DI, I know their basic need is choices, challenge, control to be in charge, and recognition, approval to be liked and having fun. Mm-hmm. If those needs aren't being met, they're going to be emotionally charged. Right? They're going to be in a different mood. So you need to address those. And it's quite interesting that when you understand, when Dr. Ohm was a high school principal and a high school teacher, so he totally got the whole dynamic of teens, right? And as we break it down, I've been with him for over 22 years, and so we've had many conversations about this dynamic. And he said, no, exactly what you're saying is true, Gord, because I come at it from a different approach because I'm dealing with teenage hockey players and baseball players and soccer players, but it's the same dynamic. It's about behavior, attitude, and character. Personality is the baseline. I'm not worried about personality because that's the easy part. What's not so easy for parents and educators is character. When you're getting what they call attitude, right? Well, attitude is a response. Attitude is basically a return behavior based on a stimulus. So you have to understand, well, what is that stimulus? What's causing the attitude? Is it because their basic need is not being met? Then if that's the case, is it situational or is it emotional?
Okay. All right, that's good. I'm going to re-listen to this part on the recording.
So I've been typing in just a few of your key points here, because I do hear a lot of parents, especially with teenagers starting, it seems like it's starting earlier than before, but especially 13 years to 17 years seems to be a very critical transition point for teens and for their parents, because they are almost unfamiliar with who they're dealing with. So you have any suggestions for them on this? Just
Well, again, we can get deeper into it. That's a whole different subject matter. But you're dealing with a dynamic of culture, right? You're dealing with schools that are taking on more responsibility to raise kids because of broken homes. 62 to 65% of kids are coming from broken homes in America today. So you have the dynamic of two houses that are giving different feedbacks on cultural nurture, whatever, ways of behavior. Then there's the feeling of abandonment from the kids because they're no longer with their mom or dad. There's a whole other dynamic and a whole other issue there. So, and we deal with it with our hockey players and our soccer players and our baseball and basketball players that we work with. So they're a large percentage of them, and the numbers are very much the same here in Canada. Is that there's a lot of broken homes and a lot of broken people, and so you're dealing with that dynamic, and so you have to know how to handle that. So let's go back to the original thing I said. You need to be able to create the climate and establish the environment where people feel safe to be able to come and disclose what's on their mind, what's on their heart, right? What's causing their anxiety. And you can read into it a lot of times, like, I'll give you an example. One of the players on our team, right? And it's the simplest little thing. It's a very, for us to look at it, when you hear the story, you'll think, well, that's pretty simple. But to the kid, it was complex. So on each of the jerseys that they wear, they have their number and their name. So the kid had the name of his dad on the back of his jersey, but the mom was throwing a conniption fit because her name wasn't on the back of the jersey with the boy. Now he's a C personality, so he wanted to do the right thing, but his second personality was I. He's an opposite trait personality. He's a CI. Very dynamic, a very interesting dynamic in that person. Less than 2% of people are opposite traits like that. But the kid who was performing really well up until that point, all of a sudden his game went in the ditch. He couldn't play. He couldn't perform because he was emotionally distraught about not being able to please his mom, but he wanted to do the right thing. See what I mean? And it affected his performance. So the dynamic of the broken culture at home affected his personal performance based on what the desire of the mom was. And the dad was saying, no way, we're not doing that. She said, well, I have a right to have my name on the back of the jersey. It's silly, but at the same time, it affected the kid. He's 16 years old, right? He says, I love my mom and I love my dad. I think I should be able to put, but my dad doesn't want to, and my mom's bad enough, and it messed him up. That was a month and a half ago. He still hasn't recovered.
interesting.
So we're dealing with a lot of different dynamics when it comes to behaviorism. But here's the thing. We have to have a basic understanding of behavior. Most people don't have a basic understanding of behavior. I wish that I would have had this training in high school. I would have been a lot better off as a late teen, early 20-year-old. I should have been in jail, but anyway, that's a whole different story for another day. But there's so many different dynamics that we can come across situationally and emotionally that if you don't have a basic understanding of human behavior, like using the DISC model and this program called Communicate to Connect, and listen, I've sold thousands of these programs in the last 20 years. thousands of them, and to very successful outcomes. And so that's why we're offering this program for Communicate to Connect with Parents through Sandy and Gino. We know it's going to help. And in the church community, there's a dire need, because there's also the Christian dynamic, right? There's the faith dynamic. That's a whole other piece that we bring into it. But anyway, it's not an easy question. So while it's a good question, it's not an easy question to answer. But I'm telling you right now, those are the families, the companies, the teams that have been with me for years, that have gone through this training and use it, and I want to say religiously, over and over again, because it works for them. They're so happy to have it, because the coaches say, I won't coach without it. Some teachers say, I won't teach without it, because it just adds a certain dimension to their ability to communicate to their kids, to their athletes, and to their students, that they said, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have this. So I'm just telling you that what I've been doing for the last 20 to 25 years, and how powerful it is when it does work, when you apply it.
Yeah, definitely. I see it as a tool to accelerate the process of understanding the individuals. So there's been such a turnover of everything that a lot of times businesses, schools, you have a collection of people that have never met each other, and having to manage them in the blind, basically. I feel like the DISC assessments is a great tool to help accelerate that understanding of each individual, their strengths, how they're wired, and how they the best approach, for them.
I would agree with that 100%. I would agree with that 100%. I mean, I've made a living off this. Prior to COVID, this was what I did for a living. I lost all my clients because they were all U.S. based, and I couldn't travel to the U.S. because of the COVID restrictions. So I lost all my clientele. Everything I was doing was through this medium here, through Zoom. Now at least I have a few more organizations that are working with me, and I've got some now that are looking to hire me in South America, in Europe, because they've heard about the success that I've had with different organizations now. So we're going into what they call a wellness program, which is about mental health. And so think about this for a moment. If you understand the basic needs of individuals, do you think you can improve mental health?
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
So now we have a whole a boys and girls sports dynamic up here, a sports club or organization that want to hire me for all of their teams: soccer, baseball, basketball, hockey, football. And they want to bring in this whole wellness concept of understanding personalities, from the coaches right through to the athletes and the parents. So we're talking about like 3,000 people, through this one small organization just north of my town. They said, we heard you do this for, people like Notre Dame University and RPI and Colgate and St. Lawrence University and McGill. And I said, yep, been doing it for 20, 25 years. And they saw the pictures of all my championship rings, and they said, hey, can we apply this to our small little athletic association? I said, absolutely. So, well, we only have 3,000 kids. Can you imagine 3,000 kids being affected by a wellness program that tells them that they are valued? Mm-hmm. They have value, right? There's a faith and belief in what they can do to have confidence in their abilities, and we can help them to become more responsible as individuals, right? What's their role in the family is, and what we do is we teach kids the responsibility to be disciplined and to take accountability for people in authority. So we tell them that you should respect your. We tell our hockey players all the time, and our sports athletes, you have to have a respect for your parents. It starts there. If you're not respectful to your parents, how can you be respectful to me as a coach? Because I hear them talking to their parents out in the lobby, and I pulled them in the office. I said, if I ever hear you talk to your parents like that again, you're not playing. I take responsibility for my athletes to speak better with their parents. Can you imagine a whole association learning that of over 3,000 kids? You think that's going to add to the mental wellness of that organization? I say yes. Mm-hmm. So we have, you and I, Sandy, as a coach, and Joan, we have responsibilities as performance mindset and wellness coaches to be able to deliver this from a platform of mental health.
That's a good point.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
Our encouragement would be, for parents, leaders in organizations, and, I just hear how much more challenging it has become. And so that's why I was excited that Coach Gordan was able to join us today and, offer a little peek into what can be offered, as a workshop and session for 2024. So
Yeah.
it's, helpful to get any feedbacks and pain points that, that parents have. But I think it seems to be pretty universal of the concerns. But now it's to, help them to feel like we can have real tools to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And the other dynamic you're dealing with too, Sandy, I think, is parents don't want to kind of give the indication or hint that something might be wrong from a mental wellness perspective, like from a mental health perspective. It's a very dark area for a lot of people, but it's a reality of what we're facing in today's society. We see it in our athletic programs. We see it in our education system. Kids are they're falling through the cracks. And suicide rates are up here in Canada. I don't know what it's like in the States, but I imagine the numbers are fairly similar.
Yes.
Suicide rates are they're unacceptably high.
Right.
If you're over 1% of a population, that's way too high.
Yeah.
It should be in the 0.0%.
That's a good point. It is high. So I think our approach might be through organizations and groups so that the parents don't feel like they're coming out as having a problem, but it's more comfortable for them to be something offered through their church, or a session offered through their organization or group, so that it's an enrichment program and educational in that way. So they would get equipped, but they won't feel like they are being too obvious that they're the ones asking. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Well, there was a program a number of years before called "I'm Okay, You're Okay, We're Okay." I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yes,
Yeah?
I have.
Yeah, but there was no science behind it, so it didn't have any real traction. Right? It was just people saying, "Hey, I've been through that." They were just using testimonials, which is fine. And Dr. Dobson of Focus on the Family came out with a book called on children. It was what was it called? It was about kids who were acted up. What's the name of it? Strong-willed children, strong-willed child. He talked a lot about what is a strong-willed child, and why might they be strong, but he didn't tell you how to fix it. Like, how do you fix it? My wife read the book. She goes, "This is great to identify why they're strong-willed," but he doesn't tell us how to fix it. See, what I loved about Dr. Rome's program is Dr. Rome teaches us how to address the challenges, the situations that we're in. Here's what you need to recognize: basic needs. Are you feeding the basic needs of an individual? And if you don't understand the basic needs, how can you feed them? And sometimes if you misread them, and if you feed them incorrectly, you're going to be even more trouble. Right? You can't feed an animal the wrong food. They're going to turn on you. And so the success of our program has been in really identifying the personality, which is fine. We don't rest a lot on personality. What we do is define attitude, behavior, and character. And where are we situationally? Both emotional situational and just event, just basically any kind of event we're in. What's our situation, right? Situational awareness, emotional awareness, right? What are we in? What are we facing? Then we can address it. When we know the cause, it's all, you've heard I don't know if you read the book Cause and Effect. That's what we're dealing with. As a behaviorist, it's like any doctor. Okay, what's the cause? We're going to find the cause. What's the effect? We're going to fix it. Well, human behavior is a little different. You have to attack it and approach it from an understanding of what's the basic need of the individual and who is this individual we're dealing with.
Mm.
What's their personality? What's their character? What's their nurture bit, right? And that's why we offer the program. The program gives a viable, scientific-based approach to how to deal with situations and how to deal with emotions, knowing what you have to do. So we introduce people to themselves, like we did step 1, step 2, step 3 at the beginning of the PowerPoint. Self-awareness, knowing the people around you, and then understanding the organization you're a part of. What some people need encouragement, support. Some people need motivation and inspiration. What's the basic need of the individual? If you're going to deal in an organization, you have to create an organizational culture that's going to attract the right people.
Mm.
In sports, we talk about this all the time with coaches. Well, this guy's got exceptional skill. We need to get him. He's one of the best players, but he's not a good person. If you bring a good person in with good skills, you're going to do all right. You bring a high-skilled person in who's not a good person, your culture is going to get fractured. Your culture is going to you're going to separate the team, and they're not going to perform well. They'll go out on the field or they'll go out on the court and they'll play, but they'll say, why are we underperforming? Because they don't like each other. There's one bad apple in there, and 2 of the other apples like the bad apple, but then 7 of the other apples don't like those bad apples. They'll play together, but they're not performing well. That's because those bad apples, right? They want to stay on the team, but they don't want to say anything because you've created a culture that's split. It's broken.
So do you get rid of the bad apples, or it's up to the leadership to define what character traits are required, or how do you solve that?
Sorry, what's the question? I don't understand the question.
So do you get rid of the bad apples, or do you retrain them, or how do you guys fix that?
Yeah, so here's the thing. When I enter into a college, so I have a college organization that I just signed up. I got 6 teams that I'm working with, and so we've identified on the team. Okay, so they have a losing record with 4 of the 6 teams, and so we're trying to identify why is that. So I've interviewed the leadership, the captains, and the coaches, and they said, well, we have a couple of players that are very selfish. Right? They're not team players. I said, well, why did you invite them on the team? Why did you recruit them? Right? So that's your first question. If it's a team, did you recruit them? Now, if you're part of a church organization, right, and you want to build a leadership group, or if you're part of a business that wants to build an organization, you have to choose the right people. The right people have to be the right fit, right? So, but to what end? So there's 3 areas that I work in. I work in human discovery, right? That's behavior sciences, behavior, character, attitude, and behavior. Then there's leadership. That's the second phase. Some are good leaders. Some are trained leaders. Then I also work on culture. What's the dynamic of your culture? And do the people fit into the culture you desire for high performance? If they don't fit into that culture, yeah, you have to get rid of them. If they don't want to be trained, you can train them, but some people just don't want to be trained. I have one guy in one of those organizations says, this is who I am, and if you don't like it, tough. Okay, so you have to make a decision here. If you're not going to comply with what we're trying to accomplish here as an organization, you're not going to play. That's the only currency we have, right? So in a team dynamic, that's okay. Company can be the same, but in a family, what do? You have to make sure that the culture of your family. We did a family culture when we started when our kids were really young. What kind of a family do you want to be a part of? Here are the rules we live by. Here are the things we want to raise you kids as. These are some of the cultural dynamics or the cultural values we want as part of our family. So we ask them to participate with us. What values do you like? Well, we want it to be a safe environment. We want to be a family. Well, what does that mean to be a family? Well, we want to know that we're provided for. We want to have fun. So we actually signed a document with their little handprints and paint, and we put it on an 11/17 sheet, and we framed it and put it at the front door. That was our family culture. And we had to adhere to that too. I remember one time, and it was so amazing when you think about it. I was having a high volume discussion with my wife, and all the 4 girls were present, right? And my oldest daughter got up, took me by the hand, and brought me to the front door. She didn't say anything, And she took me to the front door where the cultural painting was hanging, our cultural agreement. And she pointed at and she said, respect was one of our values. And she said, Dad, you raised your voice at Mom, and that wasn't very much respect.
Wow.
She held me to the values of our own culture. So don't tell me it doesn't work. I've seen it work in my own family. And guess what they're doing with their family? They do the very same thing. They created a family culture because now they have something that you agreed to this. We all agreed to this. We all agreed that this is what we want in our family. You have to have a set of rules, a set of cultural dynamic and values that people adhere to. There has to be accountability. If there's no accountability, there's no adequate behavior to make things work. We do it in companies. We do it on athletic teams. We do it in churches. We do it everywhere we go. And that's why our program is successful. Find out if anybody wants to go deeper down the rabbit hole, get trained in this program. If you want to do the Communicate to Connect program with us, we're gonna look to do that. I'm hoping to come live in California and do that with my wife. And we'll take an evening or an afternoon, whatever we're going to do, Sandy, whatever time it's going to take, 2-3 hours, and we'll do a live event. And whether we do it in Illinois or whether we do it in California, we're prepared to do that in the new year, and whether it's in March or whenever, I don't know.
Awesome.
But I'm prepared. Yeah, I'm prepared to come and do that. I talked to my wife, and we'll take a day and we'll come for a weekend, and we'll set up a coaching session, and we'll do it. We'll have a fun time together. We'll go through the Coach to Connect for parents and educators, and we'll do it with whatever we have to do.
That'd be great.
I'm ready.
Yeah. I because we know how valuable it is. How do we convey that to, the parents? That's.
Yeah,
Hi, Joe.
there's certainly pain points. And we say, here are the pain points, and they got to be willing to make a change. If they're not willing to make a change, then we can't make people do it for sure. I think timing is everything. This is a tough season for sure, being that it's the holidays. People they got busy lives. I get it, but certainly starting in the new year, that's when people set goals and they want to, bring their families closer together. They want to have a better start to the new year.
Right.
Maybe we can address a health and wellness perspective. Talk about mental health and performance mindset, communicating to connect on a mental health level. I think it would generate a lot of interest. Certainly, that's what some people have been saying up here. Even though I'm a performance mindset coach, that's what I do. I'm in wellness. I'm a wellness coach. I talk about understanding the basic needs of other people and yourself. I think if we can use that specific dynamic, I think it would bode well.
I'm writing that down because that, I noticed that depending on who we're reaching to, the approach apparently, of course, is a little different. The YMCA, the Montecito YMCA was really interested in it. And so I can follow up with them too, again, with the timing. Okay. Thanks, Coach. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you got it. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us for this pilot session. And also, if you're interested in learning more about DISC or the programs and workshops that we offer and what's available for you, good gift ideas too, because we do give, we could make some personalized gift certificates for you. You can visit our website and you can go to www.disc-go.com. That's DISC-GOE.com, and that'll get you started on it and getting some information. And again, feel free to just connect with us, ask questions. We're here to help you and how to actually use these tools for great results and for a great new year. Okay, thanks, and we'll be in touch soon.